How did your friend destroy the friendship? When I realized how crappy she was to me, always bringing me down and making everything about herself, I was already at a very low point in my life contemplating suicide and disappearing. When I confided in her, she brushed it off and didn't talk to me. I didn't need an answer from her or for her to cure my depression. I just needed a friend, and she wasn't there for me like I was for her, and that hurt the most. That day was the beginning of the end for us. It just took 2 more years for me to grow the courage to walk away from that relationship. Constantly trying to bang any of my girlfriends I brought around him. He always blamed the booze. I blamed his lack of integrity. Huge scars were left on our friendship, and we rarely see each other these days. Good friend and I work at the same place. I buy the business. Now friend works for me. Friend falls hard for coworker. She rebuffs him. He starts stalking her and threatens to commit suicide. Hot mess. Have to let him go. Well, I guess she probably didn't really consider me her friend, but I thought of her as mine. Overheard her talking to another friend about how much she couldn't stand me when I was in the booth listening to people's mics to make sure they were working before opening night of the musical. That was pretty crushing. I haven't confronted her about it, but I just try to avoid her now. She turned all our female friends against me at university because she liked our mutual male friend and she thought he liked me instead of her. He wasn't into her, but it wasn't because he liked me, it was because he was gay. So I lost most of my friends at university in the last year because my moron of a BFF couldn't figure out our other good friend was gay. He literally would say how didn't like the idea of sex with women and told us how he often sleeps in the same bed with other men. I know this is cliche and trite, but you really are better off without friends who would turn against you on a dime that way. I hope you've since found a better quality of friend. Cheated on his amazing girlfriend with the girl he knew I had a crush on. Rubbed it in my face after the fact too. That friendship lasted way too long. The proper revenge is to steal the amazing GF. Decided he was too good for the rest of us and only gave us the time of day when he needed something. Unfortunately, because dude is exceptionally charismatic, half of the group sided with him when the other half basically told him to screw off. So, he actually destroyed multiple friendships and still uses the half that stuck with him. It's really sad to see, actually. I can't stand it when people use and manipulate. It's unfortunate he was too self-absorbed to see what good friends he had. I'm glad you don't have to put up with that anymore though. She punched me in the boob. We were inseparable BFF soulmates and I loved her. I even joined choir so we could hang out an extra period. Well, she started treating me like garbage in front of her rude choir friends and threatened one day as a joke in front of them that she'd punch me in the boob. I told her if she did it, I'd walk away and never speak to her again because I didn't like how she was treating me. That's the only time I have ever followed through on a threat so serious. Sure enough, she did it and we didn't talk for 3 years. Even then, it was just a nasty message from her about how stupid I was. I'm still a little sad about it, 10 years later, but it was a good choice on my part. You made the right decision. He was going through a bad time with the woman he was living with and they split up. I offered to take him on a snow sports holiday. He accepted, but he was struggling for money, so I paid for him to have a place to stay, lift passes, food, etc. Basically everything was paid for and all he had to do was get there. I get a call a few weeks before we're going and he says he can't make it, too much work because his workers had let him down. He ran a building and home improvement business, etc blah etc. I say okay. I go away on holiday and whilst I'm away he puts pictures of himself snowboarding in Bulgaria with his workers, the ones who apparently had let him down, saying snowboarding with my mates, another lovely day up the mountain etc. He'd rather go with his workers than the person who met him at 12 years old, who protected him at school and beyond, who lent him money, who was his best man at his wedding, who picked up his stuff when they divorced, who knew him for over 3 decades, etc etc. That was the moment I stopped caring for him and refused to speak to him since. She was having a bad day and decided to tell me what she really thought of me because frick it, I guess. Okay then, good to know. I won't waste any more of either of our lives then. I was 18 and I got drunk at her house because I thought it was a safe place to do so. She was 20 and her BF was 21 and he bought the booze with our money. Her dad was cool with it and he said as long as you are being safe and not driving home, kids will be kids, just be safe. So me and her BF, 2 other female friends, and her dad drank together. I was the youngest and the drunkest. I ended up vomiting all over their bathroom and passing out on their futon. At about 3 AM her BF snuck out of her room and raped me in the living room, literally right outside her bedroom. I was too drunk passed out to fight back, and I barely remember. But I remembered enough to wake up in the morning, crawl into her room, and timidly accuse him in front of her. She believed him. Friendship ruined. About 2 years later, he admitted to it and they split up and she still hasn't spoken to me. She's probably too embarrassed at this point because she knows she screwed up royally. Became supremely unhappy with himself because he traveled around the world, met some high society people and decided he wanted to join their ranks. And in his quest to do so, he became an incredibly nasty person to be around. Said things that I hope people wouldn't even think. So eventually he started thinking he would try to find ways in which he was better than me and try to exploit them. For example, at the time he had more money and I was just out of college working a low-paying job, so he'd constantly berate me for accepting such a job, saying things like I wouldn't even get out of bed for less than 100k a year. And then he'd talk about starting his business and how he wanted to find in-debt college students to work for him so he could financially frick them over and purposely treat them like crap so they couldn't afford to quit. He was given a few bucks by his parents and it went to his head. Eventually he got this class thing in his head where he'd treat people with less money like him like crap and would justify it by saying they were poor and so it didn't matter. I brought him to a friend's house. She was having a BBQ, and he tried to hit on some girls, and once they shot down his advancements, he would act belligerent to all of them until I had to take him home. My friend took me aside and said very seriously, never bring him over again. I felt horrible. He spiraled into this whole thing of treating everybody like crap and justifying it by saying they were poor or in debt so it was okay and only wealthy people deserve respect. And of course, since I was not wealthy, I was in that camp too. It started to very rapidly get into psychopath territory. I tried to steer the friendship into the right direction when he turned the attention on me and basically berated me for my crappy job, but didn't have the guts to do it directly, just in a roundabout way, perhaps thinking I wouldn't be smart enough to notice. I literally got up, walked to my car and left, and as I was turning on the ignition, I decided the friendship was over. That was a few years ago and I feel much freer now, though I regret sticking by him and trying to help for so long. That is absolutely awful, and it's great that you don't have contact with that person anymore. He's also doing the high society thing wrong if all he does is burn bridges with everyone. Not really my friend but my wife's best friend for 10 plus years. I met this guy at work and we had been getting along pretty well for about a year, so I decided to invite him and his family over for dinner. As soon as he gets there, my wife recognizes him and greets him by name. Turns out he's an ex-boyfriend of my wife's bestie from more than 5 years ago. Whoa. Small world, right? So we have a nice little dinner, drink some beers, our kids play and then they go home. The next day my wife's friend comes to visit and I casually mentioned that he had come over. I honestly forgot they had ever dated, but this girl just totally loses her crap and starts crying and screaming at my wife. How could you do this? I thought we were friends. I can't be around you anymore. You betrayed me. So she leaves and gets on Facebook talking all kinds of crap about my wife being a ass and how our marriage is doomed to fail because she is so selfish. They haven't talked since and this was about a month ago. My wife is still upset about it and will cry if she has too much to drink. I feel really bad for bringing it up in front of her, but how the heck was I supposed to know she would react like that? The sucker went and died on me. If someone did that to me, I swear I would never talk to them again. My husband had a friend who was chronically late. We were all planning a dinner and a movie and said we're leaving at 7, no matter what. 7:15 came around, trying to give him a chance, and we left. He showed up at 8 and we were gone, in the theater, not answering phone. We get out of and we all have dozens of missed calls. We try calling him and he won't answer. Oh well. Next early morning, my husband's phone is blowing up with texts and calls and voicemails from this guy. Please don't read that email. Just delete it. I'm sorry. Call me. I need to talk to you. Whatnot. Knowing this can't be good, he decided not to entertain the idea of giving this guy another chance and logs into his email. He had written a short message about how crappy of a person he is. Mind you, this guy is pretty much on the bottom of the totem of friends. He's pretty much an acquaintance, just a brother of another friend who invited him once and he never left. He's not sure why out of everyone he chose him to rip apart. The final straw. My husband's dad died when he was 2. He wrote, "You're a bastard. At least my dad is still alive. You'll never know what it's like to have a dad in your life." I'm reading over his shoulder and I'm about to go hunt this guy down. I'm irate. He goes, "Huh." He slowly closes his laptop. He calmly said, "Well, I won't be seeing him anymore." He tried calling him a bunch of more times, but I'm sure he knew he already read it. He screwed up and stopped. Never saw him again. She just stopped replying to texts, stopped returning calls. I was worried for a while, thinking something bad happened to her. Then I noticed she had blocked me on Facebook. We had been close friends for almost 10 years. There were no signs, no argument, no conflict. Everything was just as it had been for years. Then one day she was suddenly gone from my life. It's been 3 years now and I still have no clue why. I respect her choice, but I really wish I could have some explanation, some kind of closure. I'm going through this right now and I have no idea what I've done to upset her. One day we're the best of friends and then nothing. No time to get together. No efforts made to see me or ask about me. Delayed or no replies to messages and calls. Just noticed this weekend that she blocked me on Facebook. Tears. In the 1970s I had a friend who lived down the block from me. He would come over to my place and every now and then would want to make a prank phone call. I was a latchkey kid and my mother was hardly home. This irritated me. I didn't care to make prank calls. I would ask myself, why doesn't he do this with the phone at his house? Why come over to do it with my phone? Anyways, one day me and this friend are walking down the street and were going past an empty storefront when he stopped me and asked if I saw anything on the ground. I looked down and just saw a pile of trash on the ground at the entrance of this store. Nothing more. He looked around as if to make sure nobody saw him, then reached down and pulled out of the trash what looked like a newspaper clipping. On closer look, it was an advertisement for a H. It had a black and white pic of a topless woman along with a phone number. We went back to my place where my friend wanted to make a crank call to that number. He called it, and as soon as somebody picked up, he started making lewd suggestions and cracking what he thought were funny jokes. He waved me over to listen in on the receiver with him, which I did. There were 2 women on the other end of the line and they were laughing and giggling at this little kid making a prank call on them. I don't recall how my friend ended his call, but I do remember that after he finished, he slipped that little advertisement clipping under my phone with instructions to leave it there so that he could come back to make more prank calls to that same number. Next day he came back and brought with him another kid from the neighborhood to take part in his prank call. He lifted the phone and the clipping was gone. I never touched the clipping. I don't know what happened to it. My best educated guess is that my mother found the clipping and threw it away without saying a word to me about it. My friend threw a royal conniption fit. I've never seen him so angry in all the time I've known him. It looked almost as if he was going to strike me or something. He was in such a rage. He kicked a beach ball at me which narrowly missed me. He's never acted like this to me before. Wasn't long after that we started to drift apart and didn't hang out with each other or play together. I guess that incident of him getting angry over the missing clipping was the first big real rift in our friendship. Today, that same kid is an internationally renowned classical pianist. I definitely didn't see that plot twist coming. She started screaming, over text, out of nowhere about how I never make an effort to see her and how I'm too busy seeing other people to care about hanging out with her. She lives over an hour away, and since I don't drive it's expensive to get to her, and she always wanted to do things last minute anyway. She also started making wild accusations and had nothing to back up her claims with, and then she started bringing my deceased mother into the mix. That was the last straw. She never wanted to talk things over like a rational adult, and I don't have time for high school drama in my mid-20s, so I walked away. If she wants to come back and discuss things maturely, I'm here, but if not then I'm over it. A good friend from high school came back into my life via Facebook a few years ago. We reconnected and became inseparable, watching movies and playing video games every weekend. Our kids became close friends as well. One night I was watching TV with my wife of 20 years and he, my ex-friend, started texting my wife. He said he had a problem and needed her help with. She met with him and he confessed he loved her and watched her all the time. He had several candid pics on his phone of her, mostly from behind. He showed her to prove his love. He said he'd take better care of her than I did. She was disgusted and left to tell me immediately. I called him to discuss it but he wouldn't answer. It's been 3 years and he hasn't contacted our family. Lifelong friendship ruined. Reading this thread made me lose a little bit of faith in humanity because of some of the things people will do to their so I was supremely worried about how this story was going to end. Your wife, the good woman, literally shot me in the back of the head. We were hunting this past season and a bird flew overhead while he was sitting behind me in the canoe. Not sure how he thought this would be a good idea, but he sent 2 shots whirling over my head and a piece of bird shot caught me in the back of the head. When I regained my hearing and yelled at him, he got mad at me for telling him what to do. Needless to say, we haven't spoken since then. He went out with my female best friend, cheated and hurt her, then proceeded to go out with my crush, cheated and hurt her. Freaking heck. Jeez, what the heck. On her 21st birthday I went out with her. Me and one other were the only people who showed up. She was my best friend for 8 years. She rented the duplex next to me when we moved to a new city together. I got too drunk during the bar crawl. I went to the bathroom to throw up. I come back to the bar and she's gone. The 2 guys she was speaking to were gone as well. She took my jacket which had my house keys and my wallet. Hailed down a cab. Promised the driver I'll pay him when I get my wallet at home. Get home. She's refusing to answer the door. Won't answer her phone. I call this guy I just started seeing and give an explanation. He offers to have the cab driver take me there. $40 cab fare that he paid. And I had work in 5 hours. He drives me home in the morning and my friend pretends like nothing happened. I realized then our entire friendship was always revolved around her and I couldn't remember a time she was there for me, but always me being there for her. But since then I've never had a friend to talk to every day like I did with her. My life is much more lonely. It's weird. Best friend of 8 years. I moved about 6 hours away from home to go to college and every time she'd come to visit me she would make the trip and crash somewhere else. Just coming to party. Wouldn't make any effort to see me. On my 21st she actually surprised me, which was like the nicest thing she's ever done, by coming down but brought her pose boyfriend. We made plans to go out that night so I told my new boyfriend and housemates that I was going out with my best friend and to leave without me while I waited for her. After getting ready for 2 hours, making us absinthe cocktails, I tried to get a hold of her for like 5 hours, nothing. Turns out she decided to lay in bed with her BF at someone else's house. Never said sorry or talked about it again. Spent my 21st alone. Too embarrassed to tell my other friend's BF that my best friend ditched me. I think this one makes me the saddest. It was 6th grade and I was kinda realizing that I wasn't straight but that I also wasn't gay. I told her that I had a crush on this older girl in 8th grade. I trusted her as my best friend to keep her mouth shut and not to judge me for anything. Instead she told everyone including my parents and the girl that I was a lesbian and then told me she couldn't be my friend because I would rape her. Da fuck is wrong with her? He liked drugs. Then, he liked harder drugs. Then he sold hard drugs out of his place with his 1-year-old. If I knew where he lived, I would call CPS. Frick you, Justin. You can just call CPS on him. They'll figure out where he lives. Constantly criticizing everything I did, as well as making fun of every mistake I made around him. It got to the point where the meme in the friend group was that I was wrong about anything and everything. He tried reconnecting with me a year or so after I stopped talking to him. Told him to eat a dong. Borrowing my car out, then crashing my car, killing my ex-gf and 3 other people on the freeway, then running from the scene of the crime. Me finding this out when cops showed up at my house arresting me, telling me I was the driver, only to find out 3 hours later I was nowhere near the car for the last week. Oh. Went for my girlfriend right after we broke up. They're married now. I tried to reconcile even. They wouldn't have it. moved away and blocked me on everything. Now we're not friends, I guess. It sounds like he may not have just been going for her after you broke up. This gal and I had been friends for a long time. Almost 10 years by this time, I suppose. Pretty much best friends. After some time, lots of bad relationships, knowing each other well, being there for one another, we finally started getting emotionally closer. You know, the cliche movie crap we like to want to happen. She tells me she loves me. We say we wish we'd done this sooner. We make out and are intimate, but don't seal the deal with intercourse. A couple days later she gets really awkward and ducks out on me. Begins avoiding me, avoiding texts, etc. for about 3 weeks, which really freaking hurt me. Like, WTF happened? You just told me you love me. After that time she says it was a mistake and it should never have happened. Turns out she went on a date with someone on OkCupid about the same time we got emotionally involved and started banging them, and was more invested in the already having sex. I found this part out from a third party. Feels bad, bro. Well, here's the kicker. After the grace period of her feeling bad and avoiding me, and then telling me she thinks it was a mistake, she then assumes we can go right back to being best friends. Whoa. Whoa whoa. Hold the fricking boats. You're my best friend. And you basically professed your hidden love for me. We're intimate on a deep, emotional level. And then you went and fricked someone else and blew me off as if it never happened. Then you expect us to be best friends again like nothing ever happened? What kind of person hurts their best friend like that? Frick off. I felt this story in my blood and guts. Best friend through teenage years into late 20s. Roommates. We were both best man at each other's wedding and then business partners. He stole a ton of money from the business and stopped paying our bills. He was using our money to fund drug dealers' car rentals each week. My guess is that he was getting free drugs out of it. He also used company money to fund his entire wedding, which was an absolute nightmare. He didn't used to be like that, but meeting and marrying that woman changed him. Now he's 32. Moved back home, live with his family. Divorced and miserable. I can't tell you how much I hate that man. AWW. I'm sorry. So many times people are changed negatively by their significant others and it sucks. Sean knows. Actually he probably doesn't, and that's the issue. We had been friends for 2 decades and I finally realized he wasn't a very good friend. He's more of a narcissistic butthole that prefers friends as long as they center their actions around him. Well, frick that. We had some good times, brother, but I'm not your B. Same with me and my best friend from high school. I feel for you, bro. I was upset because my other best friend was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in her early 30s. I don't give a crap about your friend with cancer, says my best friend of 15 years. That was the last time I talked to her, but I still miss her every day. What the frick is wrong with these people? My former friend group hates my current, so she didn't mind me hanging out with them because they were still my friends, and she's not the kind of person to tell me who I can and can't be friends with. They, on the other hand, kept telling me that I could do better and questioning why I was even with her. It all came to a head when they gave me an ultimatum of us or her. I was very direct and told them her. I told them she would never put me in this position and they're not really friends if they think they can manipulate me like that. Haven't spoken to them since and I'm happy with my current, so. Had the same situation, but it was the girlfriend instead of friends. I feel for you. Frick manipulative people. She's one of those I'm not like other girls. Said she hates drama but will always gossip about her friends and talk badly about them behind their back. Including myself, I'm sure. Will enter relationships with guys and then complain they aren't up to her standards. Example, I'm a good person. I deserve better and not be treated this way. She said this after an ex couldn't get to her place to take care of her when she was sick. Runs through relationships with her friends like clockwork. She hasn't done one thing per se but a lot of things, and I'm just tired of it all. When he told me he was into child pornography, this was a 23-year-old man that would lure young girls, aged 10-14, on the internet into sending him naked pictures by pretending he was a young girl and wanting to compare bodies. He told me he would then blackmail them with the pictures so they would send more, and he thinks some of them might have even killed themselves. He had over 1,000 of these pictures on his phone. Yeah, I told the authorities, and last I heard, They took him in, but I don't know if they found anything or what happened with him. But I haven't been in contact with him for a long time. This is a throwaway, and this will get buried, but I need to get this off my chest. We were casual friends until he started traveling for business a lot and ended up on my side of the country more often. Then, we regularly spent time together and started getting close. We had a lot in common and had a lot of fun together. About 6 months in, he told me he started using C recreationally. One night, he called me at 10 PM because he was feeling talkative. I could hear him scraping and tapping with his credit card in the background. I kept him on the phone because I didn't want him to do anything stupid. He talked for 4 hours. This set the tone for the next 2 years. His habit got worse. His phone calls got more frequent. My anxiety got deeper and deeper. He told me I was the only person in his life who really knew him. He told me I was amazing, that he admired me, that he truly felt close to me, that I was his best friend. I believe it because I've never had experience with C before. I didn't know that it turned him into this charming, reckless, confident person. I believed we were emotionally close. We talked all day every day via text, and I mean all day, and on some level we were very close. I grew to care about him on a deep level, and he grew to love C more and more. During the last 6 months, he started disappearing for 2 or 3 days. I wouldn't hear from him. I'm currently an engineering student, and I need all the focus I can get for school, but I was so invested in his well-being at this point, and so scared he was going to die, that I failed 2 classes during that time. I lost a major internship for NASA and set myself back from graduation by 2 terms. But I was so scared. The ball dropped one weekend when he went too far. Thank God he decided to check himself into rehab. I flew across the country that weekend to be with him and make sure he was stable that weekend. His treatment went great. He's been clean over a year now. But he also doesn't seem to understand the extent of the damage he wrought over that 2-year period. He tried to make it right, I guess. He bought me an expensive present, offered to help me out of a tight spot, made a big deal about how important I was to him, told me he was committed to keeping me in his life, and then he started dating someone, and just stopped talking to me. And after 2 years of heck, after a lot of broken promises, I don't know, it's just over. He's just gone. As quickly as he came into my life, he has gone. TLDR, don't do drugs. You'll frick crap up and hurt people. Walk tall knowing that if it weren't for you, things might have been a whole lot worse for him. You were a rock for someone that needed it. Wish him the best in life and be proud of yourself. He might have found someone truly special and is building a fantastic life for both of them. All because you cared that dang much about him. You made the world a better place. Keep doing you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.